Inside My Life, The Storyteller. Smokey Robinson looks directly at you. His sea-green eyes are riveting. His soft speaking voice, like his singing voice, is high-pitched, honey-dipped, sweetly seductive. Riding the band bus, in planes and limos and golf carts, talking till dawn in hotel suites, he tells you the story of his life with sadness, joy, and wonder. He's enthusiastic and animated. He'll leap up and testify. He'll fall down laughing. He's straight ahead, street, sincere. His luminous eyes are so startlingly clear, you suspect that peering into them, you might see through to his soul. His curly hair bears traces of the blonde coloring of his childhood. His skin glows with the tint of rich red clay. He's broad-shouldered and tall, his hands large, his waist trim. Listening to him is effortless. His speech is fluent, his stories flow smoothly. He likes entertaining, likes making you laugh, likes to surprise. He starts off with the most shocking story of all. Listen. The end. I was dying. 4 times during the night I'd wake up shivering, soaking wet, as though someone had thrown a bucket of water over me. Only it wasn't water. It was my own sweat. Heart palpitations filled me with fear. My heart hammered so hard I thought it'd explode out of my chest. For 2 or 3 beats, my heart would seem to stop, pushing me to panic. And then there was this pus. Thick, poisonous pus. Defecating. I was passing pus out of my body. I had no stomach lining left. I had no hope. I heard things that weren't there. I saw things that weren't there. I wouldn't go to the doctor because I knew I had only a few months to live. I didn't need no doctor to tell me that. I wouldn't ask friends for help because I wouldn't admit I needed any. But deep down, I knew. The epidemic of the 80s had caught up with me. It was rock cocaine. Rock cocaine was killing me. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be me. I'd been a high school athlete. At 17, when the cats would ask me to smoke weed, I'd say, "No way. Y'all get that stuff out of my face." True, I'd started smoking later on, after the Miracles made our first record, but I always had the shit under control. I could and would stop for months at a time. Nothing got in the way of my golf games or long-distance runs. Weed was no big deal. Just a little natural herb putting a funny filter over things. Nothing heavy. It must have been in the late 60s when I saw cocaine for the first time. I refused to snort it, because I didn't know what it might do to me. "Chop it up," said a friend. "Mix it with pot and put it at the end of a cigarette." I did it. I smoked it. I liked it. "Cool," I said. "I can handle this." It was fun. Mind you, smoking cocaine over the years was never an everyday thing. Maybe once every 6 months. I never even bought the stuff. If someone offered, maybe I'd accept, or maybe I wouldn't. So there I was, a semi-regular smoker, and once in a while coker. Thought I had a lid on things, and I did, until the beginning of the end of my marriage. See, I'm a stone romantic. I love love. I love dreaming about love, thinking about love, writing about love, singing about love. I love being in love. I fell in love early, at age 14, with my childhood sweetheart, Claudette. I married her when I was 19. She was a member of the Miracles, and, for over 3 decades, the love of my life. Ours was a fairy tale romance we thought would last a lifetime, but that lifetime proved limited. My heart was changing, my soul rearranging. This all happened after coke had contributed mightily to the demise of my friend and brother Marvin Gaye. You'd think I'd heed the warning. I didn't. Instead, I started toying with rock cocaine. "How's it work?" I asked the first time I saw it in late 1984. A cat broke off a little chip, chopped it, mixed it with weed, and put it in the end of a cigarette, just the way I liked it. Man, it smoked so smooth and got me so high, I called it the best shit I'd ever had. I started buying little rocks, always mixed with weed and smoked in cigarettes. The cats call them primos. I never did use the pipe, never needed to. Got hooked just the same. In May of 1985, I left home. Leaving Claudette and the kids covered me with confusion and pain. It was a hurtful time, living alone in an apartment. Folks who know me will tell you, I've never been a recluse. I'm outgoing, a people person, never one to sulk or stay to myself for long. But coke was changing me. Coke was filling in the empty spaces of my life. Slowly, then quickly, coke was taking over. At first, I'd start off with a gram rock, a bag of weed, and a pack of cigarettes. That might last me 3 or 4 days. Then I'd lay off for 3 or 4 days and still have some weed and cigarettes left over. But then I'd get 1.5 grams, and I'd be smoking more. I'd be staying in more. I'd be calling my man for more rocks, bigger rocks. If he came by at 6 at night, I'd run down for a pack of cigarettes to make 20 little Coke concoctions. By midnight, though, I was back at the 7-Eleven buying another 20 cigarettes, and I'd be up all night, getting high, staying high, sleeping all day, letting the phone ring off the wall and paying no mind to nothing except getting high again, looking to replace bad feelings with good feelings. Only I was feeling worse and worse, till suddenly I weighed less than 130 pounds, which on a man over 6 feet tall can look awfully frightening. I was frightened. I was sliding down to rock bottom, and there was nothing I could do. I was so skinny I'd have to pin my pants, hiding the pin under my shirt tails before I'd go out, and I was going out less and less. My niece and assistant, Sharon, would call and cry over the phone. "I hear it in your voice," she'd say. "You've been up all night. You've been smoking that cocaine." "I have not." I lied. "Get off my case, girl. Leave my ass alone." Normally patient, usually well-mannered, I was losing it, going off on the people I loved most. ABC was doing a show on songwriters and asked to interview me. I agreed. I stayed sober during the interview, but later, watching myself on TV, I cried like a baby. My appearance was shocking. My jaws were sunken, my eyes protruded out of my head from loss of weight. Put some crossbones behind my head and I'd be the perfect pirate flag. Look at me and you'd see death warmed over. Sitting there, I saw what was happening. I was killing myself, but the thought only made me reach for another Primo. Afraid to tell anyone about the cold sweats, the heart palpitations, the pus passing out of my body, I promised myself to stop. But I only smoked more. I heard warnings from on high. I vowed to heed those warnings, but I didn't. I couldn't. I was trapped in hell and couldn't find a way out. I lacked the strength. Rock cocaine had destroyed my will and poisoned my mind. Rock cocaine was about to decimate my body and end my life, once a success, in shame. How had this happened? I'd always thought of my life as a series of awesome blessings, yet my life had turned into an awesome failure. How in 18 short months had I gone from being a well-respected star to some funky junkie? What had my life been about? How had it all led up to this? Part 1. The Beginning, Roots. I can see Daddy standing there. I can hear his soothing baritone voice. It's a soft summer's day, with the sun blazing down and the clouds floating by. We're fishing, our poles dangling in the water, our feet dangling off the pier, and Daddy's telling stories. He's a tall, beautifully built, honey-tanned black man with a deep, easy country drawl. He always calls me boy. Boy, he says. Back in Selma, Alabama, things was different for black folk, especially my family. See, my papa, your grandfather, he was a powerful, handsome man, but he was used. Owners turned him into a stud. Many a time they'd order him to mate with their prettiest lady slaves, wanted him to turn out perfect kids who'd sell for big money. They kept using Papa till he met a woman he loved. That turned out to be my mama. He stayed with her. Then history took over. What do you mean, Daddy? Emancipation tripped up the slave owner. He couldn't swoop up any of Papa and Mama's kids. 12 children were born, all free, and you're looking at one of them. I was fascinated by my father's past. I loved asking him questions, yet the answers never quite satisfied. "But why don't I know any of your family?" I'd inquire. "Look, boy, I haven't seen hide nor hair of any of them since I was 12. I already done told you that story." "Tell it again." "Well, I was working a paper route, and there was this bully, this big old white boy who'd beat up on me and steal my money. Now, I wasn't the type to go crying to my older brothers. No, sir. I was gonna take care of this badass myself. So I got me a penknife and waited till the next time he looked to mess with me. Sure enough, that time came quick, and when he started to take a swing at me, I cut him deeper than I wanted, cut his leg. He started bleeding, and I started panicking, 'cause back then, no colored could draw blood from a white and live to tell about it. Is that when you ran away? Ran like the devil, never turned around, not even to say goodbye to my folks, just headed for the train tracks and prayed no harm would come to my family for what I did. But I wasn't thinking, I was just running for the first freight that came along. Jumped on and never looked back. Never saw any of your family again? Not once. Doesn't that make you sad? Boy, I thought we were supposed to be fishing, not thinking. That was Daddy. Loved to fish so much, my niece called him Daddy Fish. But his main nickname, given by his bowling alley buddies, was Five. Five was a sweetheart. He was generous, but he was also a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Booze did that, split his personality in half until there were two daddies, the kind daddy and the crazy daddy, the peaceful daddy and the fighting daddy. For instance, he'd take me out and get to drinking. We'd go to a joint called the Jackson Bar. He'd sit me up on the stool and start throwing back VO like it was water, get all loud and rowdy and ready to destroy Detroit. Funny, he liked to fight his friends. Daddy, I'd say, we better go. And that'd be it. He'd chill, just 'cause I told him to. Me and my niece Sylvia, whom he loved like a daughter, were the only people on God's earth who could keep Five from his bad self. Good thing my son's here, he'd tell some guy he was ready to wreck, or I'd whoop your sorry ass. Daddy was plain folk. He read little more than the newspapers. He could be lewd and crude. Psychologically, I believe, he was wounded by his separation from his family. He talked tough. Fact is, he was tough. After I jumped that freight, he said, I found me a little dog. Now me and that mutt made our way up north, hoboing around, working open markets. See, the dog was a ratter. He'd catch rats running through the fruits and vegetables. That's how we'd make a little money and move on. Did that for years until the dog died and I decided to settle down in a big city. By then, it was 1919 and I was living in Cleveland, Ohio. That's the reason you see me rooting for the Cleveland Indians, the Cleveland Browns, and every other goddamn Cleveland ball team. Even when I finally moved to Detroit and married your mother, Cleveland never left my heart. As a kid, I remember Daddy driving us to Cleveland to watch baseball games. The Indians had black players like Satchel Paige, and my soul filled with joy just to be with Five, eating popcorn and hot dogs and watching Larry Doby smack that little white ball beyond the big banks of blazing lights, sending it sailing all the way to the moon. In the car home, resting my head on Daddy's shoulder, he'd tell me more stories, his voice deep and dark as night. In the 30s, he'd say, bowling alleys got to be popular. That's when I got me a job as a pin setter over at the Whittier Recreation Center. Now, the alley was closed during the summer, so I helped out this car mechanic. Anything to stay alive. But come winter, I'd be back in the alley. That's where they started calling me Five, 'cause alley number 5 was my favorite. Wouldn't work any other. But I also wanted to get ahead. Boy, you always need to get ahead. I saw that the pin captain had charge over sleeping accommodations. Back then, bowling alleys had cots and showers. Plus, he sold sandwiches, cigarettes, and wine. He oversaw all the alleys. He even had assistants. Hell, the pin captain made so much money in winter, he could vacation all summer. Man, that's what I wanted to be, a pin captain, and that's what I became. In no time, I was making $70 a day and $200 on weekends. Got me enough money to buy a brand new 1939 Buick right off the assembly line. And that was the car that caught your mama's eye. Mama had a sharp eye and keen mind. She was a big-boned woman with light skin and a love of music, poetry, and book learning. She schooled herself. Her name was Flossie, and she was a powerful presence in the world. Her father, Reverend Benjamin Smith, left her mother in Memphis, going up north to start a church. Grandpa's mother was a Caucasian French lady with interchangeable blue-green eyes, the source, according to Mama, of my eyes. Mama dropped out of school in the 8th grade, but fashioned her own education. She was disciplined. Every day she'd learn to spell, pronounce, and use a minimum of 5 new words. She loved language. In fact, she was fluent in 2 languages, English and cuss. She was wise and high-minded, but she was also down, a savvy street woman who could tongue lash you into ribbons. I remember, for instance, an older girl complaining to her about me. I was still in my walker when this child claimed I'd called her a fucker-wucker. Mama scolded me, but she couldn't go too far. That word, she knew, was her own invention. Mama's life was her own invention. She wasn't one to be led around. She wasn't afraid. She was a tough-minded, bold, and resourceful woman. Her lot hadn't been easy, but she offered no excuses and made no apologies. She had 2 husbands and 2 daughters before marrying Daddy. Her first beau, Alfred Hedneck Bynum, wed her when she was only 15. Their union ended violently. It happened one night when their baby girl, Geraldine, was only 6 months old. Mama was in the back holding Jerry in her arms when she heard a knock at the front door. Hedneck went to answer. Boom! Mama's heart froze. She hurried towards the door, where she saw her husband thrown against the wall, his body sliding down, his eyes wide in horror, blood spurting from a gaping red hole in his stomach. He'd been shot to death by a fellow worker named Nailface. They were both plasterers. Apparently, Nailface was plastered on booze and, arguing over a crap game, went berserk. Face and Neck had been best friends. At age 18, Mama took Jerry and moved to St. Louis, where she married a man she knew from Memphis, William Henry Beamy Ligon. Now Beamy was crazy jealous, and one night after a dance, they fought until Mama fell down a flight of stairs. Whether he pushed her or she tripped, Mama never made clear. Either way, she was hurt. Beamy rushed her to the hospital, where the doctor said there was no serious damage either to her or the baby. The baby turned out to be my second sister, Rose Ella. I've had it with jealous men, said Mama. I'm going home. Back in Memphis, she lived with Grandma for a spell. In fact, Mama did Grandma a world of good. Not only taught her to read and write, but convinced her to apply for the money the U.S. government owed her. Grandma's second husband died fighting in World War I, and she had benefits coming. They finally came, but only after years of Mama doggedly pursuing the matter. Grandma used the money to remodel, and Mama bought herself a grand piano. See, Mama had God-given talent, perfect pitch, a lovely contralto voice, and the neighbors would come round to hear her. Mama was energetic, she was restless, she was fearless, and like so many other blacks back then, she thought her kids would have a better chance up north. She went to visit her cousins in Detroit and decided to stay. That's where she met my daddy, and that's how my life began. Five was a player, he liked his women, but when he met Mama, he'd met his match. Sure, he was a distinguished-looking cat, graying at the temples. You might think he was a doctor or lawyer, but Mama was no slouch. In those days, the criteria for a fox were fair skin, curly hair, and big legs. Mama had it all, and Daddy was dazzled. Here's how they hooked up. Pop had a pal named Claude, a car mechanic, who looked so much like Five, you'd confuse them for brothers. Even had the same last name, Robinson. Now Claude knew about these fine-looking sisters, Babe, Bee, and Catherine. They were Mama's cousins, and like Mama, they were super fine. They were having a party. I'm bringing you on the set, said